I'm Erin Palmer, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator. Joining me today is Krylios. Hi, Krylios.
Hello, it's great to be here.
We're here with you today because you have an exciting announcement. So tell us what's going on in your life.
My new book is available now, Fears, Fantasies, and Freedom on Amazon.com.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write the book and a little bit about what it's about.
All right. Well, I've always been a big fan of fantasy. I've always been a reader growing up, and I always planned from I was a child that I was going to be a writer in some way, shape, or form. And of course, earlier this year, one of the stories from my book, was staged on it was on the stage, Leave the Door Open. That's one of the stories from the book. And that was a great way for people to get a first taste of the story. But I've been writing these stories for quite a while, for about 3 to 4 years, compiling them and getting them together. And so the fears kind of I came up with the title Fears, Fantasies, and Freedom because the fears are kind of those things that as humans that we deal with, those things that we struggle with, that's in the book. The fantasies are our dreams and our goals and our hopes, and I wanted to really explore that. And then that freedom that comes from being able to overcome those fears, from being able to achieve those fantasies and achieving those dreams, is how the title came up. So at first I didn't know what I was doing with each of the stories, and the more I wrote, the more I realized that I wanted to compile them and create this anthology.
It's really amazing. Tell us a little bit about your creative process, because writing a book is no small feat. It's quite an
Mhm.
endeavor. It's really impressive. So what was it like to put it together?
It took a while. No, with my creative process, it really just depends on the story. There are some stories that I wrote in like a night. I got inspired. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. I start writing and then I don't stop until the sun is up. And I'm like, I've got a story. While there are others that I think of the situation, I start thinking of what I want the story to look like, and then I start writing. But I really don't know where I'm going. And that kind of story will take sometimes weeks, sometimes months to get through. And it might be even a short story, but I just take my time getting there. And then there are others where it seems like I know what everything is at first, and as time goes on, like I might reread it and I'm like, I'm not happy with this thing, or I want to change this thing. And then I start the process of changing whatever it is that I feel could be better, or if I felt like there was something else that needed to be there. So that happened quite a bit with a few stories. I feel like some of the stories that maybe closer to home, like inspired by things that happened in real life, I might write something at first, and then as I look at it, I'm like, is this what I'm trying to say? Like, what am I trying to say from this? What do I want people to walk away with after they read this? And it's with those stories that I might have a harder time completing.
That's interesting. I love hearing about the evolution because each writer's process is different. What's something that you learned about yourself in working on this book?
Um, to trust myself, to trust my voice. There are many times when I doubt what I'm doing, when I'm writing it, or I might read something over and I'm not really happy with it. And then when I get back to it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to remove this, I'm going to do that. And then I read it over, I'm like, actually, I like this. There's a reason why I did this at first. And, that was very important to me, learning to really trust myself and the decisions that I made, during the process of writing this book. A lot of that I had to really lean into.
Krylios, tell us a little bit about the cover art of Fears, Fantasies, and Freedom. It's quite beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this cover art was designed by Olivia Miles, who is a wonderful filmmaker and photographer. And we actually interviewed her. On this channel. And afterwards, during her interview, actually, she spoke about doing graphic design. And I said to her, I've been looking for someone to design this book, and I had it in my head what I wanted it to look like. Purple is my favorite color, and it screams like, royalty and magic and fantasy and all of that. And so I wanted this, when you looked at the cover, for it to be mystical. I wanted to have these fairies, flying around. The image or the symbol of the fairy is very, very important to me in this book. The book opens with a prologue called The Fairy, and it explores what makes one a man, I guess, or what makes one a fairy. I wanted to take back that word that has been used a lot to denigrate, LGBTQ men, specifically, and take it back in a way where, okay, one can call you a fairy because, you're a little bit more feminine, or because you're gay, or because of whatever, but you can take back the power and be a fairy who is, all powerful and magical and, beyond the reality, and, that transcends into a new plane, into a new dimension, and, really take it and add power to that word. And so I wanted the cover to be able to kind of encapsulate that magic, because not all the stories in there are fantastical. Most of them are actually grounded in reality, but there are at least there are 10 stories. I think maybe 4 of them, deals with some type of fantastical or science fiction narratives. And, in one of the stories in there, there's a huge fairy battle. I had to get the fairies in there somewhere. And so, yeah, that was very, very important for me, that the cover was able to give that feeling when you look at it of, the fairies.
Tell us a little bit about one or a couple of your favorite stories in the book.
All right. Well, aside from the prologue, the fairy, the first actual story that opens the book is called Ave Maria, and that takes place at a Catholic school, and it explores the relationship between, the protagonist and a secondary character, but they are, coming of age and learning about their sexuality. By the end, you find out that, the main character is a lesbian and all of that, but it was really the exploration of that and what it means to be, in a space where, she was not affirmed, in that it opens with seeing what could happen if one was open with, that side of their lives and the consequences that comes with that. And we watch how, that initial incident kind of shapes her thoughts, shapes her own feelings about herself, as the story goes along. And, it deals with religion, and it deals with love, and it deals with first times. And so I really, really like that story. Leave the Door Open is in the middle of the book, and that's a special one to me because, as I said before, I was able to stage that play earlier this year. And Leave the Door Open is, one of the longest stories there, and the main character is Caribbean. It deals a lot with, broken relationships. It deals with, the strength of friendship. It deals with also issues like race and immigration and all of that. So I really, really like Leave the Door Open. It's one of the more grounded stories, but it's also very twisty, because it's got twists and turns and villains and all of these things within the story. And then I love talking about Power and Purity because that's the one with the big fairy battle going on. And anytime I can just write freely about magic and spells and all of that, it gets me going. It gets me going anytime. So Power and Purity is that one. And so I really enjoy that story.
Well, it sounds like this book has everything. It has fantasy, fantastical creatures, and big themes like immigration and racism. That's a lot of stuff to tackle in one book. What was the biggest challenge in working on this book for you?
The biggest challenge was completing it, doing everything with the Amazon thing, uploading it, doing it, finding out what works, what did not work. There was one story in particular called Keep Your Head Up that I went back and forth on a lot. And that wasn't the last story I wrote, but it was the one that I was stuck on the longest. It takes a huge turn in the third act, and I knew I wanted it to take that huge turn in the third act. However, I did not know where it was going really, and I struggled with that a lot, and that held me up because honestly, I wanted this book out earlier. And I kept pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back, and it was mostly because of that story. It was mostly because of that story, and also like formatting and editing things, because I was doing most of this myself, so that took up a lot of time in between, doing Team Rayceen things and other things that I had to do. So those are some of the challenges I endured while creating Fierce Fantasies and Freedom.
Well, Krylios, you did it. You have a book out there for people to purchase. Can you tell folks where they can find Fierce Fantasies and Freedom, and where they can learn more about you?
Yes, you can go to Amazon to get Fierce Fantasies and Freedom. It is out now. There's a Kindle version for all the ebook lovers, and then of course there is the paperback version. So you can go to amazon.com and get it, and you can go to my link tree. That's linktree/it's Krylios. Right at the top of my link tree is the link to the book. You can go there right now and see it. You can go there right now and purchase either the Kindle version or the paperback. And you can follow me on social media at It's Krylios. That's ITSKRYLIOS. And in the bio of my social media, Twitter and Instagram, there's also the link to my link tree where you can go and find the book.
Viewers, you can also find links in the description. Thank you so much for joining me today, Krylios. It's really wonderful to connect with you and hear about all of your successes.
Thank you.
To our viewers, please follow Team Rayceen on social media and subscribe to the Team Rayceen YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.